One question that surrounds the NBA yearly is, what is the criteria that they go by to determine the MVP? I think one of the biggest reasons why it's a question is because it seems like the criteria changes every year. Sometimes you can say it went to the best player. Sometimes you can say it went to the best player on the best team. Sometimes you can say while it didn't go to the best player, it went to a player that the team has a better record. Sometimes it goes to a player that has the best statistical year, but maybe their team isn't in the best place standing wise for the playoffs. The criteria for the NBA MVP seems like it changes every year. And that has always been a question, and I think a point of frustration for NBA fans, especially towards the end of the year when they discuss the MVP. Well, you're starting to see that type of conversation, that type of discord matriculate in the NFL this year. It seems like almost every week there's a new leader, a new candidate for the MVP. And the question that you have to ask yourself, and the question that is being presented to us is, well, how do you determine an MVP? We always know that the MVP 9.9 times out of 10 goes to a quarterback, but how do you determine that? Do you determine the player that took their team to heights that nobody expected going into the season? Do you give it to the player that their team has the best record at the end of the year and they have played a major part in that? Do you give it to the player that may not have the best record but has had so many, let's say, iconic moments throughout the season that you just have to give it to him? One of the biggest issues in sports in general is the lack of consistency when they give out awards. The only consistency that the NFL has when we talk about the MVP is that 9.9 times out of 10 it goes to a quarterback. Now, yeah, there were instances where it didn't go to a quarterback, but more times than not, it's going to a quarterback. Why did I start this episode this way? Well, on Thursday Night Football, we saw the Dallas Cowboys beat the Seattle Seahawks 41-35. And the conversation, the discord, the rhetoric coming out of that game is Dak Prescott now should be the front runner for the MVP. Now, don't get me wrong. The Thursday Night Football game was great. It was back and forth. Geno Smith was incredible. DK Metcalf was incredible. DK Metcalf alone had 134 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6 receptions. Geno Smith threw for 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Dak Prescott threw for 299 yards, 3 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb had 116 yards on the day and 1 touchdown. It was a good game. It was a good back and forth game. It wasn't a blowout. It wasn't two bad teams playing on a Thursday night, which is hilarious. Because did you see the promo for next Thursday when it's supposed to be, I think, the Patriots and the Steelers, and they had Bill Belichick's picture up there? It was hilarious. But it was a good game. That was the first time, when they played, that was the first time the Dallas Cowboys beat a team that was over 500, and they looked good. There were times, of course, where both teams didn't look too well, but overall it was a good game. I'm not going to poo-poo on the game, pretty much. But the conversation coming out of it has been so interesting to me. Now, let me give credit where credit is due. Dak Prescott has been incredible this year. Dak Prescott has looked like an MVP candidate majority of this year. I wouldn't be upset if Dak Prescott won the MVP. I wouldn't be upset if somebody said he deserves to win the MVP because Dak Prescott has played well. But then again lies the conversation of, well, okay, let's look at Dak Prescott's season in totality. He's been great. Don't get me wrong. He has done what he's supposed to do. I think that's a underlining conversation that a lot of people have for the negative when it really shouldn't be. The conversation is the Dallas Cowboys haven't beaten anybody outside of Thursday Night Football, haven't beaten anybody that had a winning record. And every time they played a team before the Seahawks that had a winning record, they lost. And that has always been, well, yes, when you say the latter half as far as when they played a team with a winning record, they lost, that obviously is negative. But I wouldn't look at Dallas hasn't played anybody as a negative as much as I look at it as, well, Dallas has done what they were supposed to do. There's a lot of times we've seen teams that should be in position to win or should dominate a team, and they ultimately don't, or they ultimately struggle through the season. We're kind of seeing that with the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills should have a much better record than they have now. They've lost to the Giants. They've lost to the Jets. Like that, no. When Dak Prescott goes up against these teams, he looks dominant. He looks like arguably the best quarterback in football. And that's what you're supposed to do when you're playing teams like that. So people kind of use that. People use that argument as far as Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys haven't really played anybody as a negative, which you can paint it as a negative, but you can also paint it as a positive. But it goes back to my question. What determines an MVP in any sport? Dak Prescott has been great. Dak Prescott, I think he has 20 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. And this obviously is coming after a year where he, I think, led the league in interceptions last year, or at least was second. In all accounts, Dak Prescott has been much better than he was a season ago. You're seeing improvement. We're seeing improvement. And he looks like every part of the MVP of the league. But I think what's confusing, and I think what frustrates people is that conversation changes nearly every week. Remember maybe 3-4 weeks ago where Lamar Jackson was the front runner for the MVP? Or before that, Patrick Mahomes was the front runner for MVP? Or just 2 weeks ago, you had Jalen Hurts as the front runner for MVP. I'm not saying none of them are deserving of MVP. I'm not saying that. Lamar Jackson currently has the Baltimore Ravens number 1 in the AFC, which has shown itself to be a very tough conference this year. And the AFC North, which has shown itself to be the best division in football. Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles are currently 10-1. Patrick Mahomes statistically is still Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes is still the best player in football. So I'm not upset that we're having these conversations. I'm not upset that the names that you're hearing in these conversations you continue to hear. And I'm not upset at all. Let's get out the way. I'm not upset at all. I just think we as a fan base need clarity. Oh, man, you stayed to the end of the video. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss any content from your boy. You can also go back and watch past episodes, past clips, and don't forget that the Unpopular Podcast, new episodes drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Appreciate you.